And Sam Anyanwu of the PDP in the November governorship poll in Imo State has vowed to recover what he describes as his stolen mandate through legal means. At a press briefing yesterday, Anyanwu described the declaration of Hope Uzodinma of the ruling APC as a rape of democracy. He insisted that the election was marred by all manner of electoral malpractices, thuggery, ballot box snatching and massive thumbprinting of ballot papers. The Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board has announced the dates of the 2024 Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. JAM, in a statement yesterday by its spokesman, Fabian Benjamin, said that the main UTME will be held from April 19 to 29, 2024. He says the sale of the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination application document will be from 15th January to 26th February 2024. And he also added that the candidates are expected to print their examination slips as of 10th April 2024 and that the mock examination will be held on the 7th of March 2024. And to business, President Tinubu has presented the 2024 budget estimates of 27.5 trillion naira to the National Assembly. Christened the Budget of Hope, of renewed hope, the president said that it will ensure microeconomic stability, poverty reduction, greater access to social security, among others. He highlighted priority areas as security, local job creation, macroeconomic stability, investment, environment optimization, human capital development, poverty reduction, and social security. While giving the breakdown of the spending, he had this to say.
An aggregate expenditure of 27.5 trillion naira is proposed for the federal government in 2024, of which the non-debt recurrent expenditure is 9.92 trillion naira, while debt service is projected downward to be 8.25 trillion naira, and capital expenditure is 8.7 trillion naira. Nigeria remains committed to meeting its debt obligations. Projected debt service is 45% of the expected total revenue. The budget deficit is projected at 9.18 trillion naira in 2024.
The president urged also and asked both chambers of the National Assembly for quick passage of the budget proposal. And on the foreign scene, the United Nations Secretary General has warned that the Gaza Strip is in the midst of an epic humanitarian catastrophe. Antonio Guterres told a meeting of the United Nations Security Council that the intense negotiations were taking place to prolong the current truce. But the UN believed in the need for a true humanitarian ceasefire. Guterres went on to add that the level of aid to Palestinians in Gaza remained completely inadequate to meet the huge demands of more than 2 million people. And to sports, Manchester United's hopes of qualifying for the next round of Champions League suffered another setback as a horror show from goalkeeper Andre Onana allowed Galatasaray to earn a draw in the classic match in Istanbul. Erik ten Hag's side did so much right and twice held a 2-goal lead, but errors from Onana threw Galatasaray a lifeline to leave Manchester United bottom of Group A with their hopes of reaching the knockout phase in the balance before their final game at home to Bayern Munich. And that's the news update at 7 here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Many thanks for joining us. Up next is Today in the News, starting with Security Watch. I am David Chiudu. Stay tuned.
This is Radio Now News.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
Nah man, this subsidy removal, nah shege.
You're right. The price of sanitary pads have gone up.
Do you only need women to dance behind you at political rallies? Many women cannot afford to buy sanitary pads when they are on their monthly periods. Our girls in school call one way.
Many girls can no longer afford the important item for their menstrual hygiene.
Politicians suppose reason am o.
This talk about sanitary pad is becoming a recurring matter. Don't worry. You, the women, will be part of the team to suggest how we can address the matter well.
My Period, My Pride radio drama. Now for we politicians to provide free pads for our girls for secondary school. My Period, My Pride. The story of Ife. Now sanitary pad media campaign power up with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM. Coming to you every Saturday at 10 a.m.
Watch out.
Every Saturday on Radio Now 95.3 FM, listen and win awesome prizes on the My Period, My Pride radio drama giveaway. You could be the lucky winner for the week. To participate, simply listen to My Period, My Pride radio drama every Saturday at 10 a.m. and stand a chance to win by answering the questions correctly. Send your correct answers to our WhatsApp number 0809 682 2595. That is 0809 682 2595 with the hashtag My Period, My Pride. Be the winner on My Period, My Pride radio drama giveaway. Again, it's Saturday 10 a.m. on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
You're listening to Now Breakfast. From the north to the south. Good morning. This is your daily security watch on Now Breakfast.
Security Watch this morning, we touch base in Ogun State, where an accountant of the Ogun State government, Taiwo Oyekomi, has been killed by armed robbers who also carted away the government funds. According to report, Oyekomi, the director of finance at the governor's office, had picked up an undisclosed amount of money from a branch of Fidelity Bank in Abeokuta and was heading back to the office when he was waylaid by the gunmen. Witnesses trying to identify the culprits. And to Zamfara State, the governor, Dauda Lawal, has vowed to end banditry in the northwestern state. The governor made the pledge yesterday while visiting the Community Protection Guards Training Camp initiative of his administration to combat banditry in the state. He also expressed confidence in the fight against insecurity, emphasizing the need for collective responsibility to ensure peace. Zamfara State is one of the states in the northwest affected by the activities of bandits. And that's Security Watch this morning on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Do stay tuned. More conversations coming up today in the news. Good morning.
Good morning. This is your daily security watch on Now Breakfast. This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations. You're listening to Now Breakfast. From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outgoing issue of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegality.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDP, they stay in schools, and once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News on Now Breakfast.
Today in the news this morning, President Bola Tinubu has presented the 2024 budget proposal to the National Assembly. According to the president, the federal government intends to spend a total of 27.5 trillion naira in 2024. He says that the 27.5 trillion naira, 9.92 trillion naira, is proposed as non-debt recurrent expenditure and 8.25 trillion naira for debt servicing, as well as 8.7 trillion naira for capital expenditure. He added that the focus of the budget will be security, local job creation, macro economic stability, investment and environment optimization, human capital development, poverty reduction, as well as social security. To give us a sense of what this means for the economy in general, we're joined by the senior research and policy analyst at Budget Nigeria, Mr. Viola Kwaga. Morning, Mr. Kwaga. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Right on. And now, what are your thoughts, first of all, about this proposal?
Well, my thoughts are like, I guess, any other Nigerian. There's a lot of worry and concern as to the funding of the budget. If you recall, the position of the Minister for Finance and Committee Minister of the Economy was that this government would not carry out increased borrowing. I mean, there were complaints about them meeting a dry well, something that Tinubu said in his speech yesterday, but there seems to be no real change in terms of deficit finance. While there is a slight reduction in the deficit level from what was mentioned in the medium-term expenditure framework around 9.03 trillion to, sorry, I beg your pardon, the debt service cost was around 9 trillion, and now it's down to 8.25. That's sort of a bit comforting in the sense that there is a realization that this number, this figure, this value needs to go down, but the deficit itself, which is a result of borrowing, is still very high. In fact, it's higher than the capital expenditure, which has been a trend for this government, or rather for the government for the past 8 years now. So I'm a bit worried and a bit cautious, but I'm glad that the capital expenditure is at least above 8 trillion. What I look forward to seeing is more of implementation and the assurances that the budget will be implemented accordingly.
But you spoke about funding. Mr. President, I reckon, did address that in his speech, saying that it was going to be facilitated by, public-private partnerships to, finance these critical infrastructure.
Yes, but there's still the existing facility that should be coming on board soon. I recall the Minister for Finance talking about an $8 billion facility. And I think there are moves, to secure that. So that's still going to reflect on the balance sheet of the government at the end of the day. Moreover, we have the outstanding ways and needs, I think 3 billion naira that was added to our balance sheet by the outgone administration. Of course, securitized, but it's still there. So we have a very large budget debt. We have a large debt hanging over this economy, and that needs to be cleared at some point.
Now, it doesn't particularly reflect the new minimum wage, this budget that is. Do you see this creating an avenue for a supplementary budget?
It's interesting you asked that. I was also kind of curious as to the fate of the labor, and I know that that's something that they had negotiated for. So there was the supplementary budget that provided a 6-month period for the upward review, the wage awards, I beg your pardon. And it's concerning to note because I suspect that this may be a sore point in this administration, the battle between them and labor. And we're going to have to see, or there has to be some evidence on the part of the government that not only will the inflation rate go down, but the exchange rate should also go down. Because this really is the problem about minimum wage. I tried to make this argument that the issue really isn't about the size. I mean, the size of the average salary of a public sector worker is relatively low. But the real issue is about the value of the naira. Now, the value of the naira has eroded for nearly, in fact, up to nearly 30% within the past 5 years. inflation levels have been the highest they've ever been since 2008 within this last 1 to 2 years. So that really is the problem. The economy is not productive. The government is not earning enough. We are not exporting as well as we should. So these are the reasons why the purchasing power of the naira has gone down, and the naira that you have today is worth far less than the naira you had yesterday. But I do think that I do not want to preempt the president, but we should ensure that the controls, the fiscal discipline needed to ensure that this budget is actually spent and implemented efficiently and effectively happen. Because if you look back at 2023, we technically had 3 budgets running at the same time. We had an extended 2022 budget, we have the 2023 budget, then we have the 2023 supplementary budget. And I do not think that really bodes well for the fiscal position of this government, because it's going to simply increase the size of the deficit.
Because I was wondering then, I mean, if it does happen that we have a supplementary budget, just taking from your last line of thought, if it does come to that, it means it will be, if you like, a trend or a pattern, with the administration or successive ones, where they try to implement multiple budgets within a fiscal year and all of that. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Kwaga, today on the program. Many thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Mr. Viola Kwaga is the Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget Nigeria. That's the conversation for now, but more coming up very shortly today in the news. Stay close.
This is Now Breakfast.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations. From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outdone and the issue of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegalities.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDP, they stay in schools, and once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News on Now Breakfast.
Still today in the news, insecurity in the southeast region of the country has been a source of great concern for the residents in recent years and has also seen many reports of deaths and displacements in the region. At least 5 persons were killed recently in Imo State in the last 2 weeks, including a ward chairman in Ezinihiti-Mbise local government area of Imo State last month, as well as the traditional ruler of Utulu Autonomous Community. Now, 2 police officers and a civilian were also killed days after the monarch was killed in the local government area. Although the deaths have not been linked to any group, Imo State is one of the states in the southeast that has been plagued by activities of separatist groups. To discuss the security situation in Imo State and the southeast region of the country, we spoke with Dr. Chukwuma Okuli, an associate consultant at Nexia SPD and also a political economist. And he started by giving us his thoughts about the trend in the security, with regards to the security crisis in the region.
So, generally, there has been increase in the, level of the insecurity generally across the southeast. In our previous studies at Nexia SPD, one of the things we identified, was that there is what we call a belt of violence in the southeast. This belt of violence consists of, series of local government locations, specifically across the borders of the 5 southeast states, that are linked up together. So generally, these places are poorly governed. When we say that they are poorly governed because of the topography, some of them are thick forests, some of them, have hilly, mountainous locations, making it difficult for state security agencies to operate in those locations. So it becomes a kind of haven, for various non-state armed actors, to use those locations, to carry out their operations, and then, to avoid, easy identification, so to say, by the security agencies. So this feeds into, the agitation. For instance, you would notice that since 2015, for instance, there has been a rise in agitation, separatist agitation, but some criminal elements have taken opportunity of the rise in separatist agitation, to pursue, their self-interest, and this accounts for the increase in the level of insecurity across the Southeast.
Now let's talk about the killings that we have seen recently. There's been a large swathe of them, and in some cases in quick succession. What do you think is the reason here? What's really going on? Some might say that it is political. Is this the case?
So in the case of Imo State, there are two core things that accounts for the recent resurgence of insecurity. One is the separatist agitation, which some criminal groups have taken advantage of to pursue their self-interest. Two is the citizens' growing distrust over the state agencies, particularly the electoral process.
Right.
You would notice, So you would notice that this is the first time Imo is having its governorship election as an off-cycle election. I think since returned to civil rule in 1999. So the judgment that led, to the removal of one of the Ihedioha, so to say, in 2020, did not go down well with some people in Imo State, and as a result of that, you find a group spreading, kind of discontent across the state, saying that there will be no elections and things like that. And as these things are happening, remember that there are criminal elements across trying to pursue selfish interests. They will use the opportunity, to hijack the process and then pursue selfish interests. So these are the kind of things we see. So sometimes, you remember in various studies we have also done up next year, we found out that the kingship tussle, that is tussle over things like traditional ruler position, president general position, is also very delicate in the Southeast. And of course, again, whenever there is political chaos like that, whenever there are, situation is tensed up, opponents can also use the opportunity to attack, their opponents, so to say. So at the moment, we do not have tangible information. These are the group responsible, for this particular killing. But we know that most times the political situation provides opportunity for. So, for instance, you could have a kind of quarrel with someone. At the end of it, another enemy who was waiting for opportunity to use the opportunity to attack that person, so that people will pin it down to the quarrel you just had. So that is the tactics we see, that is happening.
All right.
The point is just that two things just provide the gap exploited: the political environment and then the separatist agitation.
Okay, now many have described the security situation in the Southeast as multifaceted, and so far a number of interventions have been attempted in order to, douse the tension, or if you like, obliterate the culprits of said chaos in the Southeast, including military and non-military. What do you think this? Why do you think it's lingered on for so long despite the interventions?
Yeah, very well. So there have been intervention, as you rightly said, both kinetic and non-kinetic, intervention by government at all levels. But the point is that it does appear that, much of the intervention, has been more of kinetic, without much evidence-based non-kinetic intervention. What are we saying? Much of the non-kinetic intervention tends not to have addressed the issue that some group are agitating for. So even the kinetic intervention, the way it is done, tend to sometimes aggravate, the tension in some location. So you would notice that, because of the manner of, the way that, so if you go to Imo State, for instance, on your way to Imo State, you will think you are in a war zone. If you pass to Anambra State, that is the local government connecting where we call it Diato and all, at least you would find at least not less than 3 checkpoints, security agencies, where you have to come down from your car and take for some meters, past the checkpoints, So all these things, if you also go through the Abia Enugu axis, you are through the Okigwe to enter Imo State again, you also need such checkpoints. You are at least 3 checkpoints that can, on the recent field work that we conducted, where you pass, you have to come down from your car and walk through the checkpoints, So the kinetic strategies, much as they are, achieving some feats, so to say, also sometimes tend to aggravate the tension because the citizens tend to find themselves in a crossfire between the state security agencies and the non-state armed group. So recently, before the election, some communities were bombed. There were areas of some communities by the security agencies who actually were targeting the hideouts of some criminal elements. But some people argue that some of the civilians, innocent civilians, were caught in this crossfire. So you can understand why such kinetic strategy may only tend to aggravate tension. That is for the kinetic strategy. For the non-kinetic strategy, it does appear that the right people that the government should dialogue with have not been properly mapped out. So it does appear that they have not been reached, they have not been properly communicated, there have not been dialogue or agreement. So as a result of that, what we find is that the situation continues to aggravate, the tension continues to mount and all that. So there is need to actually map out the real actors, that the government will want to dialogue with and find out the real issues, that needs to be brought to the table. At the moment, it does appear that this has not been assessed.
That was Dr. Chukwuma Okoli, an associate consultant at Nextia SPD and also a political economist, talking to us about the trend in the security crisis in the southeast region of Nigeria. Stay tuned, more conversations shortly.
This is Now Breakfast.
Babes, now much be sanitary pad for your area?
Omo, na play we been dey play before.
Everybody wey dey dis place wey be human being na pad dey buy take do period. She go bring her wrapper, cut all her wrapper wey she get, dey use dey do period. Which kind nonsense be this? Ijoma, see what you are saying to your fellow woman who is in need. Ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn ti pọ̀ jù.
Na so dey use cloth now. Abi we no go chop first.
Auntie Ijoma, what did my mommy ever do to you? It's not fair.
Now if a story be this, My Period, My Pride radio drama season 1. Now sanitary pad media campaign power up with support from MacArthur Foundation
and Radio Now 95.3 FM every Saturday at 10 a.m.
The Financial Services Regulation Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, in collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, wishes to draw the attention of the public to the activities of illegal financial operators, IFOs, which threaten public trust and the stability of the Nigerian financial system. The general public is hereby advised to refrain from dealing with unlicensed financial operators who deceive individuals with unrealistically high investment returns. Verify the licensing status of such schemes on this website: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng. To report any suspicions of illicit financial activities, call 0700 225 5226, 0800 225 5226, or +234 817 665 6273. Announcer, FSRCC.
You're listening to Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
This is Now Breakfast.
From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outdone and the issue of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegality.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDP, they stay in schools, and once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News on Now Breakfast.
Today in the news, on our Newsmaker segment this morning, we are talking about the state's drive towards ensuring a cleaner and safer Lagos since this term, or start if you like, of the second term in office of Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Environmental protection and enforcement of environmental laws seem to have taken quite the turn in the state. Now, in recent months, the State Commissioner of Environment and Water Resources, Tokunbo Wahab, in collaboration with the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA, and the Lagos State Waste Management Agency, LOMA, have demolished buildings, closed markets, enforced ban on trading, and many more in order to ensure a cleaner and safer environment. It hasn't come without criticism, however, with some sections of the residents saying that it is not people-friendly and not a solution-driven approach. We're joined this morning as our newsmaker by the General Manager, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA, Dr. Babatunde Ajayi, to talk us through this new drive. Good morning, Dr. Ajayi.
Good morning. Good morning, David.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. Now, why are we seeing what some perhaps have described as a sustained enforcement approach to, environmental protection in the state?
Thank you very much. So we are sustaining this drive, against environmental nuisance in Lagos because we have realized that we have realized that enforcement is indeed one sustainable way to make sure that people don't continue to pollute the environment. Right. So we've been doing a lot of advocacy alongside, but there's a renewed by the Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, who has, led a charge by himself to say enough is enough, and we have to do better in Lagos. So that's why we sustain.
I reckon that your organization isn't particularly in charge of waste management, but let's talk about that a little more. We know that Lagos does have a waste problem. What other approach is the government employing apart from the current enforcement as we know it to be at this point in time?
Right, so as regards everything, across board, the other approach is to sustain advocacy, which is why you would see all of the agencies in the Ministry of Environment ensuring that we communicate very clearly what we're doing. Communicating the enforcement itself is advocacy, if you look at it properly. Right, so we're going to schools, we're teaching children that they shouldn't just be or cause nuisance to the environment. We're also by ourselves going to markets. We're doing advocacy like we're doing now online. We're going to radio and TV. We're deliberately pushing the message out there. So advocacy is the other alternative or the other way we have made sure that people comply by these directives.
Speaking about complying and said directives in question, I'm particularly curious because around the neighborhoods of the city, or if you like some portions of the metropolis, we've seen some law enforcers going about their duty as statute, and then you of course would have residents raising some sort of outrage, if I should put it that way. Multiple markets being closed and all of that. Again, the criticism specifically is that it is not particularly friendly to the resident. Can you react to that?
I must, clarify that when you contravene a regulation, you lose your right to pick and choose. Because your business is being in the way of public safety, and it's in the way of public good, as it were. So if at some point what you're doing is, your freedom to trade is infringing on the rights of the next person's freedom to have good life or good quality of life, then you're clearly the problem. And while people may think that, the markets that we've closed or the businesses that we've shut down temporarily, though, are not happy with our methods, it's also important to mention that at the time we opened them, they're excited about the results that that activity brings to the table. There's no one who is happy with a dirty home. So because there's no one who's happy with a dirty home or a dirty business premises, at the time you open it, they know you have forced the hands of the remaining 75% of them who are comfortable with dirt. And that in itself brings peace of mind. It helps them, it reassures them of good health, reassures them of better quality of life. They're happy that their sanity has returned. And so it's a two-way thing. At the time you're enforcing, the owners of the businesses will not be happy. But when the results are out, when they have complied fully with your regulations, then they'll be excited. And then you would see them leap for joy. So I think that in the interest of public good and safety, the measures that we have taken, to my own best understanding and from the feedback I've seen, are in the best interest of the public.
Okay, I hear you, but then you talk about having complied with the regulations and all of that. This is, having temporarily closed these facilities and all of that. What needs to be done in between that period for those facilities to be reopened? What requirements have to be met specifically?
So if you've caused a nuisance with noise, for instance, we will shut down your facility after we have given you 2 warnings, and we'll tell you to go by our regulations. For noise pollution in particular, the first thing you need to do is to stop the noise. Of course, when we shut you down, then you will stop the noise. Now, before you reopen, you need to commit to a reduced noise production. So if you're using 5 speakers in a small room for your church, you need to reduce it to 1 or none, because people can actually hear you without it.
Okay, and then for the markets?
Because they are mostly closed for waste management infringements. However, they also must comply with the regulations. They must commit to continuous cleaning. They must immediately clean and evacuate all of their dirt. They must commit to continuous cleaning. They must be ready and willing to commit to paying for their waste disposal. Everybody everywhere pays for waste disposal, so they must commit to contributions and payment arrangements for their waste disposal. And a couple of other things.
Okay, so earlier you spoke about advocacy and whatnot. I'm curious, how overarching is this, or how far-reaching is this? Because there's still some people who would tell you, even if you sounded the alarm for 10 years, they would tell you, I didn't hear anything, they just came one day and then, destroyed my property and all of that. So how far-reaching is this?
So advocacy is something that travels faster than good news, right? The enforcement that travels faster than good news. So the advocacy on the one hand is to keep telling you the standard or the regulations. We keep explaining these things, right? I know that a part of our audience will stick to radio. I know some people stick to television. I know that some others do social media. But you see, across all three, and if you have traditional print media to it, across all 4, if you don't fall in that category, there's someone in your network who falls in that category. So even if you don't see us telling you that, you need to have, yesterday, for instance, on our social media, posted things around for LASEPA now, how you need to have an arrangement to abate your waste oil production in your your restaurants and your food production facility, your waste oil blocks the drainage. So we do the advocacy. A lot of people may not see it. It doesn't travel as far. It doesn't get very popular. But the day I shut down a very popular restaurant for not doing that, it travels 10 times faster. So for us, it is do the advocacy, add enforcement to it. Those that don't get it from the advocacy will get it from the news of the enforcement. And if it travels across all the media methods that I had earlier listed, there's someone in your network who has that information. Even people in the markets have radios. Even downfall drivers have radios in their buses and things. So there's always a way to pass that message, and people always get it.
Right. Dr. Babatunde Ajayi is the General Manager, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEPA. He's joining us today as our newsmaker. Now, Dr. Ajayi, there seems to be some form of public-private partnership to turn waste to wealth in Lagos State, as we know it. Can you walk us through this plan, and where is the spot, if you like, or the place of residence in this particular project?
Okay, so you talked about waste to wealth. What it is really is that the recycling part of things, so we're trying to drive more sustainable policies. We're looking at reusing and recycling. So a lot of organizations that particularly those of them who generate most of the plastic waste, for instance, have committed to recycling. And recycling as it is now is one quickly developing area of waste management. So people now buy the plastic waste and recycle. People buy paper waste and recycle. It's always been there, but there's just increased advocacy for it. So our advocacy, our side of the business, for instance, in plastic waste management and waste to wealth, would be discussions around, making sure that people do not just dump their plastic waste carelessly. The amount of plastic waste that we generate in Lagos is a lot. So whatever person you can bring into the net, please do. So that advocacy to wealth is what drives people faster. The moment one person is picking plastic, next person is asking, what are you doing with this plastic? And he says, I made some change of it. Then clearly, there's going to be increased knowledge about it, and then people will begin to turn it to wealth. So basically, it's people buying back plastic and or recyclable material. Put it out.
Right. Now, speaking about these, bric-a-bracs that we pick on the road, or that these individuals pick on the road to turn into wealth, as it were, there are the other ones that aren't particularly attended to, and these ones lead to what we see in the state, or portions of the state that block the drainages and lead to flooding and all of that. And in some cases there aren't even any drainages. What is being done to address this situation? So again, for things like that, we need to continuously do advocacy, and then people who are caught in the act, are made to face the law. People putting their waste in drainages are made to face the law, and it's something we've done over time. But if I may pause you there, Dr. Ajayi, I say this because when you're driving on the major road, and I see this every other time that I'm driving on the road, either beside me or in front of me, you see some person put their hands out the window and toss a plastic bottle or a PET bottle out the window, or a wrapper or peel of something they've eaten, and I don't see any enforcement officer anywhere around to flag them and perhaps continue from there. How are we going to continue this way?
So again, like I said, the day you're caught is the day you stop doing it. We do it. I can't even imagine how many years governments and indeed even private organizations have continued to do advocacy against illegal and irresponsible management of waste. People know what they're doing is wrong. They are clearly aware of it. But usually, again, unless there's enforcement, the word force makes people do things correctly. Unless there's enforcement, people will not do it, which is where we have started, and which is why we've started the trial. If we sustain the enforcement like we are currently doing, more people will get the message and they'll stop tossing their waste on the road and putting it in drainages and things like that.
Okay, well, overall, the flooding situation caused by some of these things, whereas the other cases or other causes of flooding in portions of the state that aren't even wetlands, is there any particular, if you like, action being taken toward the amelioration of the pain, so to speak, that it brings the residents in and around these areas?
Yes, so if you follow closely, the Ministry of Environment and indeed the Commissioner for Environment and Water Resources, Honorable Tokunbo Wahab, has been on a drive to ensure that flooding is abated completely in Lagos. I mean, for us, it's a very important experience because the impact of flooding on health, on commerce, on industry, and everything else is usually very far-reaching. So around Lagos now, there are bougies and very big equipment clearing all the canals. If you follow closely, you see what I'm saying. So they are clearing all the canals now of all this waste that people indiscriminately dump. They're also making sure that there's advocacy around not putting your waste in the canal or not throwing it out indiscriminately. Right, so all of these things are geared towards ensuring that we don't experience flooding in many areas of Lagos. And you can really just track flooding back to its cause. You can tell where it's coming from. You can tell why there's flooding in this area. Some is blockage of drainage with construction activities. Some is blockage of drainage with waste from residents and industries around them. So for those areas, clearing the drainage early in good time before the rains begin again is one way to go, is one way around it. And the Environment Ministry is leading that drive to clear the drainage. And that has been sustained over time. For the ones that are blocked by construction, it's no longer news again that the Commissioner is on a very major drive to stop that. And we will build on construction pathways, drainage pathways, are having to remove whatever they have put on their drainages or whatever structure they've put on the drainage. They just have to remove it, that's it.
All right. Let's talk more about the environment. In this case, more specifically about climate change and plans to reduce carbon emissions and whatnot. Now, tomorrow essentially marks the beginning of the UN Climate Change Conference in Dubai. What is the state government doing with regards to this? Because we know that already we have a, so to speak, long-term net zero target. But in the immediate term, what is the state government doing vis-a-vis the contribution to the reduction of carbon emission and combating climate change?
Okay, so first of all, Lagos is leading. The governor of Babajide Sanwo-Olu, he's by himself leading the Lagos team to climate conference in Dubai, the COP28, right? And that tells us a story. It clearly tells us where his position is. It tells us where he stands as the leader of the state, and particularly walking in the strides of the president, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president. So we are leading the charge. We are particularly taking it as seriously as we can. We are talking about our own peculiarity and our legal story at the COP conference. We are deliberately engaging important stakeholders who can partner with us to take appropriate steps to achieve our net zero drive.
Right. All right then. Thank you very much, Dr. Ajayi, for joining us on the program this morning. Dr. Babatunde Ajayi is the General Manager, Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, LASEBA. It's been a newsmaker. Many thanks again for being a part of the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a great day. Thank
you too. This is Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. That's our package today on the Newsmaker segment. Do stay tuned. Now breakfast continues shortly at 8 o'clock with the news review, just shortly after the news headlines. I am David Chiedu. Do stay tuned.
From the north to the south, real people.
So like I said to you, it's some serious elements of the outdone and official of my party whose tenure elapsed, who are pleading with me to endorse an illegal extension, and I refuse to be a part of any illegality.
Real stories every morning.
Most of the IDP, they stay in schools, and once they move in schools, when there is a disaster, the school in that area is automatically shut down.
This is Today in the News, your Now Breakfast.
You're listening to Now Breakfast.
Connect with us now via our social media channels, facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
It's midday, yeah? But it's redefined. It's the best of everything. Color up your midday with the right serving of goodness. We're talking insightful interviews,
global prevalence,
refreshing conversations, telling sports stories, delightfully soothing great music. All on your Beyond the News station. It gets better and invigorating every moment on The Midday Show. Tune in to The Midday Show every weekday 9 a.m. on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
The Financial Services Regulation Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, in collaboration with the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, wishes to draw the attention of the public to the activities of illegal financial operators, IFOs, which threaten public trust and the stability of the Nigerian financial system. The general public is hereby advised to refrain from dealing with unlicensed financial operators who deceive individuals with unrealistically high investment returns. Verify the licensing status of such schemes on this website: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng. To report any suspicions of illicit financial activities, call 0700 225 5226, 0800 225 5226, or +234 817 665 6273. Announcer, FSRCC.
It's time. This December, hang on to your hat for a scintillating radio experience. Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos presents The Rejig, featuring Now Breakfast, Now Midday, Now Express, and Now Drive Time. Brace yourself. The jig will get you. Coming soon.
The Financial Services Regulation and Coordinating Committee, FSRCC, and the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, don't join body to warn everybody of the plenty wahala where the illegal financial operators, IFOs, they cause every day, where they spoil and scatterbalance the trust where public people get on top anything where concern money for Obodo Nigeria. Them they advise us to stop to dey follow and do business with financial money operators when no get license. Abeg, confirm the license of those kind company on top these websites them: www.cbn.gov.ng, www.nicom.gov.ng, www.pencom.gov.ng, www.sec.gov.ng. To report any fake financial people or money scam where you suspect, call Call 0700-225-5226, 0800-225-5226 or +234 817-665-6273. Announcer FSRCC.
In order to keep up with our culture of excellence and continue to bring you the very best of radio programming, we invite you, our dear esteemed listener, to share your concerns with us on any of our content and or broadcast practices that you consider unsatisfactory. You can reach us via WhatsApp on 0809 682 2595. That is 0809 682 2595. This is for us to get your feedback on our efforts to continue to build and maintain our relationship with you and also to serve you better. Thank you for choosing Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Stay tuned to your Beyond the News station daily for our up-to-the-minute compact news bulletins from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., bringing you a wide range of local and international news from our news desk. Stay informed, stay updated on Radio Now 95.3 FM.
Across Nigeria, Africa and the world, this is Radio Now News.
The news headlines at 8 this morning on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Demolished buildings don't have acquired approvals. Lagos Commissioner reveals. One killed in fresh Kano protest over appeal court judgment. Imo governorship polls, PDP candidate Anyao vows to challenge Uzodimma's victory in court. And JAM announces date for 2024 UTME. In business and economy, President Tinubu presents 27.5 trillion naira 2024 budget. On the foreign scene, United Nations chief warns of epic humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. And now to sports. Manchester United Champions League knockout stage in jeopardy after drawing to Galatasaray. And these are your 8 a.m. headlines here on Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos. Thank you for listening. Up next is the news review on Now Breakfast. I am David Chiedu. Good morning.
This is Radio Now News.
This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
News and information go around every second. The ones who deliver it and how matter. We give you depth, substance from the real sources.
I made statements in that regard, and the first point I called was the National Working Committee.
There wasn't any agreement between Oshio Machina and Ahmad Lawan.
DPO, the divisional police officer who is on ground there, went there.
Also giving you a more human angle on the events that matter.
We are not people that live in mansions, but we are people that live within localities, and the people are afraid to
That's so many issues there in area boys. Then we now went to...
Let's cut the convention and rather have a conversation. Radio Now 95.3 FM, Lagos. We go beyond the news.
You're listening to Now Breakfast. Let's go beyond the news. Let's talk facts.
First and foremost, the government will never kowtow to the threat of any group to give it conditions.
Let's discuss your opinion.
The politicians in Nigeria don't understand the principle of politics.
The day's biggest news stories.
IPOB has been covered in themselves in glory. There is nothing special about them. It's like a witch cried at night and the child died following morning.
This is the news review on Now Breakfast.
Once again, welcome inside the news review here on Radio Now 95.3 FM's Now Breakfast. You can join us as usual and get your thoughts in via the numbers, the phone lines, and of course on WhatsApp. The numbers on WhatsApp are 0809 682 2595, and the phone numbers are 091 35000 953, as well as 0901 111 1953. The lines are officially open, and your thoughts can start to come in. My name is David Chiedu, and Ibi Bozimore joins us this morning. Good morning, Mr. Bozimore. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Good morning, David, and good morning to all of the wonderful listeners.
Right on. Let's go straight to the stories this morning. We are starting with the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. That one essentially encapsulates Mr. President's budget proposal from yesterday. And the kicker, 2024 fiscal year. And then, of course, going straight to the headline, security gets lion's share as Tinubu presents 27.5 trillion naira budget. The riders underneath that, recurrent takes 18.51 trillion naira, capital 8.7 trillion naira. President wants proposal passed in 1 month. 87 trillion naira debt, worrying, reduce it. Akpabio says past budgets failed to meet expectations. Speaker, budget estimates will bring economic depression, and that is according to the opposition People's Democratic Party. Now, Abi, a lot of people have had a thing or two to say about Mr. President's budget proposal. That's the budget of hope, or renewed hope rather, as he calls it. Expressing pessimism on some front, while some others are optimistic about the if you like, the results, going forward. And there is also the question of whether or not it does reflect the core focus of the administration and or the expectations of Nigerians. But generally, what are your thoughts?
Now, I haven't had a chance to go into the weeds with the stories about the budget. It was laid yesterday, and of course, we have this top-down look very broadly. One of the interesting lines for me is that capital expenditure is 8.7 and recurrent is 18. So we are spending on recurrent. I guess you also have to say we have a large population, many workers, their salaries, their pensions, and so on. So there is a lot you need to spend in servicing the people who have worked in and for the country. But I don't know how far we can push our very necessary infrastructure development if we are spending that kind of proportion on recurrent expenditure. And recurrent expenditure, as I said, includes the cost of governance. I have not seen where there has been a concerted effort by this administration to target the cost of governance. Indeed, I have heard of continuous trips, which we'll talk about in the other headline, all over the world, accompanied by all sorts of people. And you can say it or like it, but this is in direct contrast to what we have heard in other countries where the presidents there have said, look, living large on government purse is not going to happen. If you want yourself the latest car, buy it. So this budget has come out. It's going to be broken down into every sector possible. I think, looking at the numbers, if there were 4 areas that were the focus, number 1 being electricity, number 2 being education, number 3 being healthcare, and of course security, then everything else could fall into place. I don't know how much. We've seen the headline, security takes the lion's share. Of course, if there's no peace, you cannot have any development. So that makes sense. And then I've also seen some crowing, if I can call it, about how there's a larger figure. But when you consider that the Naira has depreciated by about 40% in the past few months, and then you look at the direct percentage increases, it actually means, in real terms, we're spending less than we were spending the years before. And that is something people have to understand. The real value of the Naira worldwide has gone down. So if you were spending 1 Naira yesterday, you should be spending 1 Naira 40 kobo. But right now, we're boasting that we're spending 1 Naira 10 kobo. And that's not really, I don't know how they plan to make it up, but I am concerned. Let's never forget, though, that a budget is more of an indication of your priorities. So when we go into the weeds, we'll see what the priorities are. Is the priority going to be given to more cars for certain people in government and other things, or will it actually go to real things that can support productivity of the country? That's why I go back to electricity. If you told me that the entire budget figure was going to be diverted to electricity, I would actually have a smile, because that would mean that you would unleash the magnificent energy of Nigerians to now create the wealth and, of course, pay taxes on it. I know that's not possible, but when you look into it, we'll see. I haven't gone across it with a fine-tooth comb, so I'm going to suspend direct judgment for now.
Right. A few other, worries with regards to how the budget is going to be funded, have been raised across the board. But of course, it was adequately responded to by Mr. President himself, talking about employing public-private partnerships in order to fund said budget. But then again, something quite telling, which he said that he wanted to stick to a January-December budget cycle, as he were. And I know that you are, a stickler for that sort of cycle. Does this come as encouraging or impressive to you?
Yes, I have always advocated that indeed on the first working day after independence of Nigeria is when the budget should be presented. And a month after that, roughly at the beginning of November, it should be approved. The reason being, in Nigeria, our prime construction season, i.e. capital, construction and expenditure, is our dry season. It hurts me that we send the budget roughly at the end of the year. It doesn't really get approved till February. By March, the rains have started, and so we're losing a lot of our ability to actually put our money to work for Nigeria. If we're trying to do it at the end of the year, that's okay, but I don't see why anybody is not working from the first working day after Independence Day. That should be the day by law where the budget is laid and all approvals are done, so that as we're entering the prime construction season of November, December, January, February, we're getting more out of our money. It's already poor enough as it is. Let's not waste it struggling with rain in our climate. So, well, I'm happy he's trying to reorganize that, but this is my advocacy. I feel we should not lay the budget anything later than the first working day after Independence Day holiday.
09135 953 0901 111 1953. Those are the numbers to call, and on WhatsApp 0809 682 2595. What are your thoughts regarding this budget of renewed hope? Do you see it being anything that you envisaged or not? That's the name essentially of it. It gave me quite the if you like, snarky smile on my face when I saw it yesterday. I'm not going to tell you what came to my mind, but that's all there is that you're going to get from me. I'm not saying anything that that you would say that I said. Budget of renewed hope, ladies and gentlemen, presented by the president himself. But before we get to another story, we're going to go straight to the phone lines. Usin joins us this morning. Welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you today?
Wonderful, thank you very much. How are you today?
Well, We bless God.
All right, share your thoughts with us.
Okay, we saw the president yesterday presenting the 2024 budget size of 27.5 trillion naira to the National Assembly. Fine, beautiful. But my own concern is most times the yearly budgets are not fully implemented in the overall benefits of Nigerians. And also sometimes also query the need for us to do a budget estimate that we know from day one that is beyond our capacity. Say, for instance, if I'm expecting a federal allocation of about 100 billion naira for a year, that's 12 months, and internally generated revenue, say another 100 billion naira, that makes about 200 billion naira. Why do I need to do a budget of 300, 400, or 450 billion naira? When I know from the one that I don't have the capacity to do or to implement such a budget. But I know the excuse from our government will be, oh, we need to borrow to fund projects. But most of this borrowing, we don't see them in practice. And that's the reason why Nigerians are so unhappy, are so dissatisfied, with our government year on. You budget more than you can chew. You don't bite more than you can chew. And in the long run, most of these accumulated loans that we have incurred from government in the past, we are paying back now with our own sweat, and we are not seeing them into practice. So I wish the new administration will keep to the promise and fulfill all the campaign promises made to Nigerians, because the rate of hunger and anger in the land is unprecedented. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you very much, Usini. I appreciate your thoughts. 091350953. Now, let's go to another story very quickly. This is on the Guardian newspaper, by the way. Before we touch on the big headline there, which of course has the kicker as the COP28 summit, let's touch a little bit on what is happening in the health sector. Still on the front page of The Guardian, by the way. This is on page 3. More teaching hospitals risk shutdown over exodus of medical professionals. This is good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
George, good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Right, share your thoughts with us.
I want to talk about this budget of 18. Because I'm used to get a little confused in the sense that must we borrow money to finance our budget, whether it is necessary or not? Because in Nigeria here, I can see things that can bring money to government. Like we have the seaports, we have an NPC, we have airports, we have a lot of things that we tax that we bring money to the government. Because each time I've been hearing that government is borrowing money to finance the budget. Does it mean that government is not making money here, to finance the budget? This government said that if they remove fuel subsidy, that they will not be paying money for subsidies, those trillions they have been paying. Now, for the past 6 months, now they remove this subsidy. Are they trying to tell Nigerians that they are not making money from this subsidy again? So what's the essence? I want to listen to throw light on this. What's the essence of borrowing, where we have things that will bring money here to cushion the effects of this borrowing? Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much, George. Well, funding the budget, essentially, right now, we're going to be doing more than what it is that we're already doing, including public-private partnerships, which Mr. President is going to embark on, several arrangements to finance critical infrastructure. The subsidy issue, on the other hand, a couple of months ago, which was, implemented, had a more overarching purpose, if you like, use of the proceeds, which was to, shore up revenue for the country, which was being for want of a better expression, wasted, or being misused in the hands of, unscrupulous individuals who made quite the business for themselves, meaty business for themselves in the oil and gas sector, as it were. So that was particularly the reason why, and this has been happening for a long time, so that's particularly why there was need. I mean, it didn't just start a couple of months ago. It started a long time ago, but for some reason there hasn't been that political will. We saw the drive first under Mr. Dr. Jonathan, many years ago, but that one fell by the wayside because of citizens' outrage, and then Mr. Buhari tried it, didn't seem to be working, and he shelved it again, and then of course shelved it I think twice during his tenure, and then of course earmarked a complete removal because there wasn't any budget for it again in 2023. So there wasn't much option for the current administration with regards to that. That was why it had to go. But all of that aside, this budget in this case, Mr. President is looking to, partner with some private entities to make sure. I mean, we all know that the country is in huge debt. 87 trillion as we know it, and so there isn't that much resources to fund the budget, and which is why Mr. President is looking outward to make sure that the funding of the budget would not be a problem, would not be a challenge. Of course, they're going to get money from as many places as possible, including borrowing. So and the projected revenue as far as this particular budget is concerned, just so you know, is 18 plus trillion naira. I think I mentioned that was it yesterday or so. So putting all of those things into context, into perspective, I think what Mr. President is trying to achieve here is, to make sure that this particular budget is reflective first of the core focus of his administration, and of course to meet the demands of Nigerians. But of course the funding, we're going to hear more about that as events unfurl. But Abi, you want to respond to that?
Well, let's, among a few key things to keep in mind always. First of all, the current president actually was not the one who mandated the removal of the fuel subsidy. It was the former president, but he lacked the courage to actually carry it out. So the current president has effected it. Next, almost every country borrows, so we're not strange or unique in that regard. However, there is often a correlation between a country's borrowing and the effects and improvement in the lifestyle and standards of the people. I think where people have a problem in Nigeria, including me, is that we have been beset with borrowing for years, and there does not seem to be a corresponding improvement in our lives. Indeed, we have been called the poverty capital of the world, and we seem to have borne that mantle with pride, unfortunately. So borrowing in and of itself is not a thing. It's what you're borrowing for and how you are actually going about borrowing. I also ask myself about the countries or the multilateral agencies that lend to us. There was a song by Ice-T back in the day, Pusher. It's almost as if they have become our pushers, giving us a drug that we're addicted to, the borrowing. The current president said he would continue from where the last president left off, and he certainly appears to have done that. The borrowing started, supplementary budgets were passed, cars were bought for both official people in the Senate and National Assembly and unofficial people like the First Lady's office. That is not a constitutional office. I have not seen a concerted effort by the current president to reduce the cost of governance, and that is part of why I feel there's skepticism. You talk about private-public partnership. You do know that there's partnership between the mafia and the shop owner. It depends on what ground you're standing on. Are we demonstrably fiscally responsible? When we now go to these private people, what kind of terms will they be able to extract from us in getting into those partnerships? These are some of the underlying issues that must be addressed. Of course, you can get someone to give you a loan, but to somebody else, they give the person a loan at 0% interest, and they could give you a loan at 13% interest. Guess who's losing? You, who are getting it at 13%. So it really means you must demonstrate that you have put your house in order, and it is then that you can better approach lenders and get terms that will favor you. Of course, the lender has to get the benefit, but let the terms be more favorable towards you as well. I worry that we have not demonstrated yet that we are in that right position. But, you know, as I said, this is fresh, hot off the press. It will take more engaging with it to tease out what could be celebrated in it, and maybe understand some of the underlying philosophies.
Uche joins us this morning. Hi, Uche. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning, David.
Yes. Good morning.
The person, I don't know who is speaking, who before you passed on to me, but I ordinarily I wouldn't have called, because what I'm saying is probably just corroborating what he said. He took the words out of my mouth.
Are you talking about our analyst?
Yes, your analyst.
Okay, AB Bozimo, right.
Okay, all right. He's making a lot of sense with his analysis about the propriety of some of the things that we've done with spending in the first 6 months of this administration. I don't think this current administration is serious about reducing cost of governance. They're probably trying to work out a number of other things which time will tell if they are wise decisions on. But you see about cost of governance, they totally got it wrong. We have the largest government in, I think, in the past 20 and something years of civil rule since 99. We have the largest number of ministers, and then it also trickles down to what happens in the National Assembly, aides, and all the people appointed by the ministers and other appointees, chief executives of MPAs, and so on. So the first sign, they say a good dancer is known by the first step, right? Even though the budget has just been placed, we haven't seen the details of it, so we don't know if there's anything to celebrate yet. But many of us are very, very, I wouldn't want to use the word hopeless, but there's little to hope for when we've seen that the first 6 months, has been used to borrow money to renovate a presidential lodge that was renovated right after the last president left office and before the current president, moved into the villa. We heard that the presidential lodge, the villa, the vice presidential lodge and all of that were being renovated. We've seen borrowings that have been allocated to another set of renovations just a couple of weeks ago. It was an uproar in the media. We've seen borrowings allocated to buying official vehicles for the office of the First Lady, which is an unconstitutional office. And we're talking about monies running into billions of naira, right? And it's absurd because these monies are being borrowed and we're going back to the same borrowers to buy and purchase some of these luxury items, right? And what does that tell you? They're giving you the money and they're collecting it back through the back door, and they're actually going to get interest on their loans, right? So it is a shame. It is a shame, David. It is a shame, right? We saw the spokesman of the National Assembly talking about purchasing a luxury Toyota SUV, rather than purchase from in-country. He said that they were going to purchase, so I'm talking about over 400 and something luxury Toyota SUVs running into billions of naira, and his excuse was just shambolic. So we've seen these things. We see a lot of wastage. And David, let me say something before I close. There was an analysis I saw by the World Bank that showed that close to 48% of our value for money is lost at the procurement stage, both through inflation of contracts and giving money and kickbacks and all manner of things that are done at procurement. So there is very, very poor management of public finance in Nigeria. That's a standard, and it cuts across both federal down to the local government level. But here's the thing. We have a budget that has been passed for 26 or 27 trillion, some trillion. Now, if you go by that standard, it means close to 13 trillion out of that is going to be wasted. The value we are going to get, Nigerians are going to get out of that budget, it will not be more than 13 trillion naira. Now, when you look at things from that perspective, then you understand the amount of wastage. And now that 13 trillion that we are going to get as the real value of the 26, is now being spent.
Uche, are you giving your own figure? Because the projection is 18 million in profit. Sorry, 18 trillion in profit.
18 trillion, right?
Yes, in profit.
Okay. Now, the value of that 18 trillion is going to be 9 trillion. If we go by the projection of that analysis by the World Bank, it's going to be about 9 trillion. And out of that 9 trillion, most of it will also go to purchasing items that we do not need for a country that should be, employing fiscal discipline. So, my brother, it is a very scary situation. I just hope they prove us wrong. I really, really hope they prove us wrong.
You and me
the
both.
Amount of waste in the government, it is alarming. No country wastes its resources the way Nigeria does. It's alarming.
All right. Okay then. Thank you very much, Uche. And I reckon a lot of Nigerians share your sentiment as to wanting to be proven wrong. Hello, good morning, Dr. Paul. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Here on the voice moderator.
Go on, Dr. Paul. Good morning.
I cannot continue to retrace one matter there. I don't know the first time of budget presentation. I know this country is all about good policies, bad implementation, or no implementation at all. And when I saw people say if you are criticizing the government, you devour the government, you don't see anything good in government, they are saying the way it is. They are telling you about job creation, this and that. The question is you ask, if there is a stable environment, uninterrupted electricity, social development, maybe in this budget, infrastructure development more than the current expenditure, and so on. The Nigerians are not lucky people, I've been saying this always, but the people running this country is the problem we have. So see, if you that name now, just make advert on job, for people to, you see 1,000 people coming. So when Abamoro was Minister for Interior, what happened? The minister now for aviation, which one you mentioned? They might play the coin mama that person before you get a job. There are a lot of student measures. We see them loan. We need to probe question, not to ask questions. David, a lot of money has been budgeting for education. Have we said on that? A lot of money has been budgeting for infrastructure. When immediate part of inflation, county, president, demand, central infrastructure, I wonder. How many of them were completed? All our better form, money recovered, everything. Lagos Ibadan is still under control. I don't know whether that of with what I read some time ago that second Niger Bridge has been abandoned. I don't know the fact of the story. Because
no, it hasn't been.
You say?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, work is ongoing there?
Yes, it is.
Because this December now, that's the only road we push. We are going to use that bridge. Issue of that traffic, gridlock, we ease out. But these are the issues. Passola was 8 years there. Nobody called him. One more was spent a ministry for 8 years. These women and us, telling us so many things about this. It's the issue. You should start to prove anybody that, run into public office. But we don't do that. Are you expecting something from this budget? Is there any budget that has 40% implementation? How many budgets got 40% implementation? There is this and that. So this rhetoric, it cannot help us. Government should create a national environment. Nigerians' economic GDP will grow. If Nigeria is running electricity for 1 year, and the issue of insecurity will reduce and various minimum, nobody will be complaining.
All right, Dr. Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Maybe do you want to respond to any of those, or you want to touch on the next story, which essentially talks about the health sector, where we're losing more hands and more brains, so to speak, to the very, very uncomfortable nature of the sector. More teaching hospitals have been shut down, and some others might be shut down due to shortage of nurses, doctors, and all of that, on account of their, as we like to call it around here, jackbuying, massive relocation abroad. This has been revealed by the NARD, by the way. Thoughts on that? Another day, another problem.
Point that I concur with. Nigeria happens to be one of the most wonderful, fortunate, located countries in the world. We are right near the tropics. We don't have natural disasters like earthquakes and typhoons and cyclones and hurricanes. We have energetic, intelligent, hardworking, honest people in general. We are ready to...
Ebi, on a lighter note, we do have natural disasters.
Now, let me get there.
All right, then.
The one natural disaster Nigeria has is the leadership class. One of the least imaginative people. What a privilege it is to lead people like Nigerians. But only Nigerian leaders, in my personal, not the station's opinion, have leaders that don't understand what a blessing it could be. I wonder how they feel. They've all gone, half of the cabinet or so has gone to COP28, and they're going to make a very important argument. Let me tie that story together. The argument is we're transitioning from hydrocarbon-based energy sources to renewables. This is a very important thing when it connects to climate change. You will notice how rains don't stop. There's no August break anymore. Flooding happens. All sorts of funny weather things are happening, not just in Nigeria, but all over the world. Climate is changing. Why? Human activity is blamed for some of it. And the activity is mostly from the West, where industrialization has gone on for decades. And now it's affecting our climate. And so with that worldview, they are suggesting that, hey, we need to change the way we're going about things. However, countries in the global and economic south that are not the contributors to all these things are going to argue at COP28 that we cannot be locked into a state of non-development. We must be, everybody must, I don't want to use the word help, everybody must work with us so that our people too have a chance at a good life. This Japa syndrome, and that's why I'm tying it in. The Japa syndrome comes about because professionals get trained, cannot practice their craft. On a lighter note as well, when the National Assembly had that boneheaded idea, in my view, to say doctors cannot go out, somebody made a brilliant statement. Okay, as long as doctors cannot go out, then National Assembly members cannot go out to get help. They must be treated by the doctors who are here. I thought that was pretty brilliant, but that was on a lighter note. Nobody, it's not slavery. If you want to go out and you can go out, you should be allowed to go out. Instead, make the conditions in the country so good that going out becomes an option, and in some cases, an undesirable option. But no, our leaders, our natural disasters wouldn't think like that. Rather, they want to use that mentality of force. They will not force light to be in Nigeria. They will not force good roads. Rather, they will buy bulletproof cars to drive on bad roads that they have said. So you see, when I talk about natural disasters, tying it all together, we're going to COP28 to argue that Nigeria and other nations must be collaborated with if you want us not to sell our hydrocarbons, and because you know they're moving to electric vehicles and all that. Absolutely. So even our hydrocarbons are soon not going to be as valuable as we thought they were. I know the time is against me, but now half of the cabinet has gone to this thing to make a good argument. They are leaving the doctors. They are going on government costs. The doctors who are leaving have studied so hard. Some of them were on their way to Sokoto on August 17th, maybe, and they were kidnapped. Nobody is talking about Nigerians. They were going for NYSC. Since August 17th, they've been kidnapped. We're hearing Nigerian government officials telling us security has improved in Nigeria. I've never had such malarkey. And nowhere, how many times has the National Assembly sat since that day? How many times has the FEC sat? Not one statement is being made about Nigerian children whose parents have worked hard to put them through school. Some of them have put themselves through school, and they're now in the forest with terrorists. But people are flying all over the world to go and seek audience and shake hands. I just feel our natural disasters are magnifying for us, and that is why private-public partnerships too will be harder, because people may not have much confidence and trust in those who are saying they are managing the economy. I hope the budget gives us some hope indeed and renews hope, but I am somewhat skeptical until I see more proof.
All right. Okay then, caller from Apapa sends in a message, said they need to borrow to fuel V8 engine SUVs while they want ordinary Nigerians to convert their car to CNG with 500,000 naira. Ebi, have you converted yours yet? Wahala. Anyway,
instead I have a car, I've converted my leg.
Oh, please tell that to who gonna believe you. Anyway, COP28, that's the headline. Again, Nigeria, others negotiate rights to just transition, and it has a very colorful, that's if you look at the front page of The Guardian, by the way, it has a colorful infographic there that adequately outlines the global carbon budget for the 2022 year, presented on in September of 2023. North America has about 10.3, Oceania has 10, Europe 7.1, Asia 4.6, South America 2.5, and the least there being Africa. We're talking CO2 emissions tons per capita, and we've just talked about that one and then some. But because of time, this is where we're going to end it. Thank you very much, AB, excuse me, for joining us on the news review this morning. To appreciate your time.
Thank you. The pleasure and privilege all mine. If you agree or disagree, hit me up at AB Bozimo on all platforms.
Alrighty, thank you again, and also thank you for calling in and being a part of the program today. Stay close, more coming up on Business Now in a few clicks. Aramide Folorunsho will bring you the latest in business, and of course I'll be back right here to draw the curtains. I am David Chiudu. Good morning.
Every second and every minute, something new happens. The news breaks.
People at the spot, and angry mob decided to bomb.
Everyone wants to share it, but not everyone wants to dig deep. Now that's where we come in. We bring you the news and go beyond with in-depth conversations and analysis with stakeholders.
I honestly think that the federal government on its own part has broken.
If voters or more people want to be part of that decision-making process, they need to be part.
GDP is not a good measure of development anyways. We are not there. We need to counter the narrative of the fact that our vote does not count. If your vote does not count.
We bring you the story within the story, and that's what makes us tick. We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos, and we go beyond the news.
We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
From the Central Business District of Lagos, Nigeria's commercial capital, this is 95.3 Business Now.
It's Thursday, the final markets day in November. A warm welcome to the program, everyone. I am Aramide Folorunsho. These are the latest business headlines. The African Development Bank on Wednesday revised its short to medium-term macroeconomic forecast for Africa. The growth forecast for 2023 was revised down to 3.4% from 4.0%, and next year, 2024, was also cut back to 3.8% from 4.3%. 2% previous. The AFDB group says that the slightly lower figures reflect the persistent long-term effects of COVID-19, geopolitical tensions and conflicts, climate shocks, a global economic slowdown, and a limited fiscal space for African governments to adequately respond to shocks and sustain post-pandemic economic recovery gains. The updated data were published in the 2023 Africa's Macroeconomic Performance and Outlook Update, a follow-up to the Banks Group 2023 Africa Economic Outlook released back in May. Now, while inflationary pressures are receding globally, the AFDB group says that they are persistent in Africa and continue to weigh heavily on the continent's short to medium-term economic performance. Africa's inflation is now projected to average 18.5% and 17.1% in 2023 and 2024, respectively. The new report advised that in the short term, African countries should continue to implement restrictive monetary policies to contain inflation, and this should be supported by fiscal policies that promote economic diversification and remove supply-side constraints. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu is scheduled to unveil a code of corporate governance for all public institutions in the first quarter of 2024, according to the Financial Reporting Council. The Executive Secretary of the Council, Dr. Rabiu Olowo, disclosed that the code will mandate government institutions, including agencies that are also regulators, to comply with the same financial reporting standards as private companies. Olowo added that a separate code is also being developed for not-for-profit organizations operating in Nigeria. The Nigerian government is forecasting a 33.5% reduction in the 2024 budget deficit, with a projected decrease of 4.60 trillion naira compared to the 2023 budget. President Bola Tinubu disclosed this during his presentation of next year's fiscal appropriations bill to the National Assembly on Wednesday. The deficit in the 2024 budget proposal was projected by the executive at 9.18 trillion naira, while that of 2023 was 13.78 trillion naira. And the 2024 budget also saw a 2.22% reduction in the deficit to GDP ratio from the 6.1% reported in 2023 to 3.88%. Dangote Cement's 50 billion naira Series 12 commercial paper offer under the company's 300 billion naira borrowing is scheduled to close today, with settlement date set for tomorrow, Friday the 1st of December. A new report released by Standard Chartered shows that the retail investors will be able to raise $94 billion towards climate change financing in Nigeria by the year 2030. Now, the Standard Chartered latest sustainable banking report for 2023 revealed that 95% of investors in Nigeria are interested in climate investing, and 91% of them wanted to increase capital flows towards climate adaptation and sustainability. Well, coming up after the break, we'll look at investment professionals weigh various options to attract investment into Africa. Join us again, everyone.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Welcome back to Business Now. Leading investment professionals, policymakers, and industry experts across Africa came together on Wednesday in Lagos to explore opportunities for sustainable economic growth and development across the continent. Let's listen to Same Shinoda, the Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer at the African Finance Corporation, speaking on the role of the AFC in the search for where and how to invest in Africa. Take a listen.
The biggest opportunity in Africa, or for Africa Finance Corporation, is also a big risk for Africa. which is the differential between, can you hear me? The differential between the risk perception and the actual risk. So international investors would think that Africa is a very, very risky place. And for people like us, like you, who are on the ground, who understand the market well, would feel that, no, this is a risk perception and this is the real risk. What we at AFC do, we price somewhere in the middle. So we capture that value between the perception of risk and the actual risk. And this is how, since we were created 16 years ago, our balance sheet was $1 billion, now it's almost $12 billion. We've been profitable for the last 16 years. We've distributed dividends for the last 10 years. So a great success story. Thank you. Another reason why I lost my hair is we have to continue doing that for the next 10 years. So the key thing is that it's behind all that success story, there are also horror stories about investments that have gone wrong. And if you're not scarred by things that have gone wrong, you will not be able to do things and use the lessons learned going forward. But how do we do that? One of the biggest problems in Africa is that there are not enough projects that are bankable. So if you are thinking of yourself as a simple investor, as a checkbook, you will fail. You have to think of yourself as a solution provider. Solve the problem and then find the right partners, find the right environment, build the right environment, and then get the project done. And that's why one of the strongest things that we have at AFC is that we have a team that develops projects from scratch. A 5-6 page concept paper has to be transformed and developed into a bankable project. Government licenses, environmental approvals, EPC contractor negotiations, land rights, building permits, raising debt, raising equity alongside us, because we don't put 100% of our money in a project on our own. We bring others and we raise capital around it, reach financial close, construction, and then successful operations. If you don't create the opportunity, it will never come to you. Whatever will come on your desk are the leftovers of the good projects. You have to create your own opportunities. And then the other thing you need to think of is that I've worked with the largest private equity fund in the world, Blackstone. For them, Africa was one market. There are 54 countries in Africa. Some countries are doing very well. Some countries are doing less well. Some countries have a huge potential, like Nigeria, and I would like to think as an Egyptian, Egypt, South Africa as well. But you need to dissect that. You need to remove that cover. You need to scratch the surface and look, where are the pockets of opportunity? And then if you are looking at Africa as a whole, there are a few things that you need to think of. One, diversify, diversify, diversify. So I'll give you an example. 3 years ago, we had 3 renewable power projects in different countries in Africa. Very small, 50 to 100 megawatts, very difficult for us to attract capital. So what we have decided to do, we said, we want to be the largest renewables player in Africa. Fast forward 2.5 years, we are the largest renewables platform in Africa. But how did we do that? We said we're going to go through acquisitions, we're going to go through partnerships, we're going to develop our own projects, and we're going to put everything under one holding company so that we are diversified. So now we have 15 projects in 6 countries, 4 different currencies, speaking about currencies in terms of revenue, most of them with government guarantees. So we have 6 assets in Egypt, we have 4 assets in South Africa, Djibouti, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, and they're all operational. But we also have a very strong team, like you mentioned. The human capital, we have a very strong team and a very strong pipeline. But then how do you create the returns? One of our partners, so we have a very strong regional partner, and we have the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development as a small shareholder. And we have a very strategic partner as well, a company called Masdar, which is owned by the UAE government. It's the government's renewables platform. They will help us through the exit because they can give us access to listing on the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange. So in private equity, I'm sure everyone here will tell you, when you step into an investment, it's like when you step into a room, you have to step with your back into the room because your eyes have to always be at the door. How will I exit? How will I recycle the money?
This is 95.3 Business Now.
Samir Shanuda, the Executive Director and Chief Investment Officer at the Africa Finance Corporation. Well, let's walk you through the Wednesday's trading day. We'll start with equities. The domestic equities market reversed Tuesday's loss as bargain hunting in Seplat, that went up 10%. Nestle recorded a whopping 9.52%. Transcorp 1.34% and United Capital 0.29% drove the benchmark index higher by 0.34%. And that takes the NGX index return to the doorsteps of 40% since 2023 started. So across frontier Africa markets, we've got the Egyptian main index that slumped by 1.44% and the Kenya Burs declined by 0.13% on Wednesday. Here in West Africa, the regional exchange last in Abidjan edged higher by 1.32%, led by Orange Telecom's big jump on the Burs, while the Ghana stock market was soft by 0.06%. However, if we look at the Southern African region, the Zimbabwe stock market rallied 1.18%. While the JSE in South Africa fell 0.46% yesterday. So on Broad Street, overnight lending rate among commercial banks here in Nigeria narrowed by 38 basis points to 16.8%, and that's in the absence of any significant inflow into the system. The Nigerian Treasury bill secondary market traded with mixed sentiments as the average yield paired by just 1 point to 10.2%. And trading in the Treasury bond secondary market was mildly bullish as the average yield contracted by 1 basis point to 15.7%. So the Naira advanced strongly by 6.1% to 831 Naira 47 kobo against the US dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market. And let's get to oil prices now. That fell in early Asian trade on Thursday as weaker than expected Chinese manufacturing data. But investors maintain caution ahead of an OPEC Plus meeting that is later today at 3 p.m. where production cuts are expected. Now, Brent crude futures fell 28 cents or 0.3% to $82.90 a barrel, while the U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude futures fell 24 cents or 0.3% to $77.68 a barrel. The U.S. Energy Information Administration on Wednesday reported a surprise build in U.S. crude oil and distillate fuel stocks last week, and that's indicating weak demand. Gasoline stocks also rose by more than expected. That's what the data showed. And oil markets in the previous sessions found support from hopes of some form of price supportive resolution from the OPEC Plus group, which includes the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and its allies such as Russia. So members of OPEC Plus are due to hold a policy meeting today, Thursday. Talks ahead of the meeting were focusing on additional production cuts, although details were yet to be agreed, sources close to the group told Reuters news agency. Another media report on Wednesday said that the cut could be as much as 1 million barrels per day. Let's be on the lookout for that. Well, finally, the Global Summit on Climate Change named COP28 starts today in Dubai. Global leaders, policymakers, industry big names and activists are meeting to discuss the progress being made towards climate adaptation and environment sustainability. The COP28 summit will be wrapped up on December the 12th. And that's your business now for today, Thursday, the 30th of November. I am Aramide Falarshaw. We thank you for listening. It's bye for now.
This is 95.3 Business Now.
We are Radio Now 95.3 FM Lagos.
Connect with us now via our social media channels. Facebook.com/RadioNow953FM.
We're on Twitter too. Connect with us there and get involved.
At Radio Now 953FM. 953FM. Like what we do? Share it on your socials and tell everyone.
Want to see some more of us? Head over and meet us on Instagram
at Radio Now 953FM. Get in touch. We'd love to hear from you.
Be a part of our online community on Facebook. Like our page on www.facebook.com/This Is Radio Now to join every conversation on air and get up-to-date news information on the go. This is Radio Now 95.3 FM. Come for the news, stay for informed conversations.
I'm Chris. I'm a trader operating a chain of supermarkets. I engage in monthly comfortable contributions with my insurance company. It gave me the opportunity to inject capital into my business during peak periods and reap handsome returns. I never knew that an insurance company can be that helpful. Kudos to Mutual Benefits Assurance for such innovative and business-sustaining insurance products.
Take advantage of the delightful offers and experience the peace that comes with knowing that you can count on